The Chicago Sky recently decided to part ways with Teresa Weatherspoon, saying it was time for a fresh start. Unfortunately for Weatherspoon, that fresh start didn't include her. The real reason behind her exit? She found herself tangled up in a doping scandal involving Angel Reese, and honestly, it's not a shock. Instead of guiding her star player towards smart decisions that could secure a lasting career, Weatherspoon took a reckless path. She not only turned a blind eye to Reese's questionable choices, but some say she outright encouraged the use of performance-enhancing substances to boost the team's results. As a coach, if you truly care about your players, you guide them away from dangerous shortcuts. But Weatherspoon? She decided to toss common sense aside in favor of shortcuts that could only end badly. It's as if she thought cheating would somehow guarantee success, ignoring that fake strength never lasts. Now, both Weatherspoon and Reese are under intense scrutiny, one facing disgrace, and the other being thoroughly investigated for doping. In one reckless move, Weatherspoon managed to sabotage both her career and Reese's future. Weatherspoon had been facing backlash for weeks over her questionable tactics, especially since her entire game plan seemed to revolve around Angel Reese. Let's be honest, while Reese was supposed to be the team's rising star, she and Weatherspoon ended up orchestrating one of the biggest disasters in WNBA history. How do you even mess things up this badly? Angel Reese was hyped as the next big thing, but instead of shining, she made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Steroids? Really? It's one thing to struggle in a sport, but it's another to fail and resort to cheating. The Chicago Sky even filed an official complaint accusing Reese of steroid use, which only added to the chaos. In truth, Reese's career with the Sky had been disappointing from the start. Reports suggest that Weatherspoon's strategy focused heavily on just one or two players, causing major dysfunction in the locker room. And let's not forget, if Angel Reese is the wreck, Weatherspoon is the person who handed her the keys and told her to hit the gas. This is the same coach who should have been steering her team toward success, but instead decided to pin all her hopes on a single player. When Reese began to struggle, Weatherspoon didn't hold her accountable. Instead, she doubled down, letting Reese believe she was still the star of the show, even when the numbers said otherwise. The chemistry inside the Chicago Sky locker room crumbled as Weatherspoon kept banking on Reese, who was delivering little more than disappointment. During her rookie season, Reese scored fewer than 10 points in half of her first 10 games, a dismal start by any standard. Instead of addressing this slump, Weatherspoon treated Reese like the team's most valuable asset, clinging to the idea that she was destined to be the next superstar. It's no wonder the Sky's season ended in a disastrous 13-27 record, with an embarrassing 3-13 stretch after the Olympic break. Here's the real issue: everyone could see that Angel Reese wasn't living up to the hype. Fans and analysts noticed how Teresa Weatherspoon seemed to favor Reese, often to the detriment of the rest of the team. This favoritism sparked frustration, especially among talented players like Camila Cardoso, who found themselves sidelined as the game plan revolved around Reese. While other players sat on the bench wondering why they weren't being given a fair chance, Weatherspoon stubbornly kept Reese front and center, even as the season went down in flames. Rumors started swirling that Weatherspoon was fully aware of Reese's steroid use but chose to overlook it. Instead of putting the team's interests first, she allegedly allowed Reese to keep juicing just to keep her under the spotlight. If true, it reveals a coach willing to sacrifice everything for one player's vanity. This toxic obsession not only shattered team morale but also wrecked any hope of salvaging the season. As the scandal unfolded, Angel Reese made an emotional statement saying, "I'm heartbroken and at a loss for words. This woman meant everything to me during such a pivotal time in my life." While it's understandable that Reese felt attached to Weatherspoon, her remarks raised eyebrows. After all, this isn't the first coach Reese has worked with, yet she claimed Weatherspoon was the only one who believed in her. But belief in what, exactly? Covering up mistakes? Ignoring bad choices? Encouraging steroid use for fleeting moments of relevance? Reese framed it as if Weatherspoon was her one and only supporter in a world that didn't understand her, especially as a black woman in sports. However, this "she believed in me" narrative quickly crumbled under the weight of reality. If believing in someone means looking the other way when they cheat and underperform, that belief is more harmful than helpful. The truth is, genuine support comes from holding people accountable, not enabling their poor decisions. Reese mentioned how she doesn't question why God brings certain people into her life, saying that Weatherspoon arrived when she needed her most. Yet, with her safety net gone, Reese now faces the harsh reality of standing on her own. Maybe it's time to rethink things like relying on hard work and fair play instead of shortcuts. Because with Weatherspoon out of the picture, Reese will have to confront the fallout head-on without the cushion of favoritism to shield her from the consequences of her actions. When Angel Reese entered the WNBA, she likely thought she'd breeze through the league the same way she did in college. But things didn't go as planned. Caitlin Clark, a fellow rookie, was setting the league ablaze, racking up 761 points in her debut season. While Clark was making headlines for her achievements, Reese was struggling to keep up and jealousy began to rear its head. Instead of rising to the challenge and improving her game, Reese chose the easy way out: steroids. Nothing says I can't compete louder than turning to banned substances to stay relevant. And here's the kicker: Weatherspoon didn't just witness this train wreck happen, she let it unfold. As Reese's coach, her job was to guide and mentor, especially when things got tough. But rather than confronting Reese's declining performance head-on, Weatherspoon let her continue down a self-destructive path. It's as if she thought that by looking the other way, everything would somehow work itself out. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Instead of helping Reese find her footing in the league, Weatherspoon enabled her worst instincts. She saw that Reese wasn't performing like the star everyone expected, but instead of pushing her to improve the right way, she allowed the doping scandal to spiral out of control. The very person tasked with guiding Reese toward success turned a blind eye to the problem that would ultimately derail both their careers. If Weatherspoon had truly cared about Reese, she would have put her foot down and stopped the madness before it escalated. But instead, her poor judgment ended up hurting not just Reese but the entire team. The Chicago Sky locker room descended into chaos as players like Camila Cardoso were benched while Weatherspoon kept favoring Reese despite her lackluster performance. It's hard to build a winning team when the coach is obsessed with one player who's delivering nothing but scandals and excuses. The tension between Reese and the rest of the team grew worse as the season progressed, leaving morale in shambles. And just when things couldn't get more bizarre, Reese pulled a stunt that left everyone shaking their heads. She faked a wrist injury mid-season. Most suspected it was a ploy to avoid the embarrassment of being overshadowed by Caitlin Clark, especially with Clark dominating the Rookie of the Year race. Reese probably thought she could sneak away from the spotlight for a bit, only to return and dazzle everyone with a comeback. But when she reappeared looking suspiciously stronger and more explosive, it became obvious what was really going on. The fans weren't fooled by Reese's sudden resurgence. Instead of applauding her return, they saw it for what it was: a steroid-fueled facade. Yet, rather than addressing the glaringly obvious issue, Weatherspoon continued to keep Reese on the court, ignoring every red flag. She didn't just enable Reese's bad decisions, she doubled down on them, risking everything for a player who was clearly imploding under the weight of her own poor choices. Weatherspoon's stubborn loyalty to Reese didn't just cost the team, it wrecked their entire season. The Chicago Sky's playoff hopes were crushed, and the organization finally had enough. Fed up with the chaos, they took legal action, filing a lawsuit against Reese for violating league policies with her steroid use. And right in the middle of this storm, Teresa Weatherspoon, the coach who let it all happen. It became crystal clear that Weatherspoon was just as responsible for the disaster as Reese was. This scandal wasn't just a blow to the Chicago Sky, it dealt a massive blow to the WNBA's reputation too. A league already struggling to gain mainstream respect now found itself embroiled in controversy, thanks to one coach's obsession and one player's poor choices. Weatherspoon's decision to center the entire season around Reese, even as the team fell apart, proved to be her downfall. She didn't just lose her job, she left behind a legacy tainted by one of the most disgraceful moments in WNBA history. Reports now suggest that Weatherspoon's relationship with Reese was the final straw that got her fired. Even after the losses piled up, she refused to adjust her strategy or focus on the other talented players waiting for their shot. The obsession with making Reese look like a star clouded her judgment and ultimately cost her everything. Both Reese and Weatherspoon are now being dragged through the mud by fans and the media alike, and honestly, it's hard to say they didn't deserve it. Weatherspoon's downfall serves as a cautionary tale. Coaching isn't just about favoring a single player or chasing temporary glory. It's about building trust, fostering teamwork, and guiding athletes to grow both on and off the court. In her relentless push to keep Angel Reese in the spotlight, Weatherspoon abandoned these core principles. Meanwhile, Reese, instead of rising to the challenge, leaned into shortcuts and scandal, tarnishing her reputation before it had a chance to flourish. With the lawsuit underway and both careers in shambles, the damage they've done isn't just personal, it's public. The Chicago Sky's locker room chemistry is shattered, and the WNBA now has to deal with the fallout of one of the biggest doping scandals in recent history. Fans feel betrayed, teammates are left wondering what could have been, and the entire season stands as a reminder of what happens when poor choices go unchecked. In the end, Weatherspoon and Reese both learned the hard way that talent alone isn't enough to succeed. Trust, accountability, and integrity are non-negotiable in a league where every move is under scrutiny. Now, with the dust settling, one thing is clear: shortcuts come at a price, and both Reese and Weatherspoon are paying for them dearly. Their story is over, but the fallout will linger for a long time, a harsh reminder that in sports, as in life, there are no shortcuts to greatness.